When waitress Selena Moore spills wine on billionaire Julian Davenport, she expects to be fired, not pursued. What begins as a chance encounter turns into an offer she can't refuse. But can love bridge the gap between their two worlds, or will secrets and society tear them apart? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The dining room of La Maison Rouge was buzzing with activity. Crystal glasses clinked, expensive perfume filled the air, and the soft murmur of conversations from wealthy patrons created a blanket of sound. For most guests, this was just another evening of fine dining. For Selena Moore, it was day 14 of working doubles. "Order up for table 12, called Chef Maurice from the kitchen. Selena tucked a loose strand of brown hair behind her ear and straightened her black uniform. At 26, her body ached like someone twice her age, but she couldn't afford to slow down. Not when her mother's medical bills kept piling up and her 18-year-old sister Lily needed textbooks for college. "Selena!" Mr. Vickers, the restaurant manager, snapped his fingers. "Table 7 needs their wine, the 82 Bordeaux. Don't mess this up. It's worth more than your monthly salary." Selena nodded, biting back a retort. 6 years at La Maison Rouge, and Mr. Vickers still treated her like it was her first day. She carefully placed the open bottle on her tray, along with 4 crystal glasses, and made her way across the dining room, navigating between tables with practiced grace. Table 7 was in the corner, 4 businessmen in suits that probably cost more than her rent. 3 of them were loud, laughing about some deal they'd just closed. The 4th sat with his back to her, perfectly still, his posture rigid. "Good evening, gentlemen," Selena said, placing a napkin on the table before setting down the first glass. "I have your Bordeaux." One of the men raised an eyebrow. "Finally, we've been waiting 15 minutes. "I apologize for the delay, sir," she replied, keeping her customer service smile firmly in place as she continued placing glasses. Just as she was about to pour the wine, one of the loud businessmen threw his arm out to emphasize a point, bumping her elbow. The tray tilted. Selena felt her heart stop as she watched, almost in slow motion, as one of the glasses tipped over, sending a wave of deep red wine directly onto the lap and white shirt of the quiet man. The dining room fell silent. Even the kitchen staff peeked, out to see what had happened. Selena stood frozen, the now steady tray still in her hands as the man slowly rose to his feet. He was tall, at least 6'2", with broad shoulders and dark hair that was just starting to gray at the temples. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones, strong jaw, straight nose. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. Steel gray and intense, they locked onto hers like a predator finding its prey. She recognized him instantly from magazine covers and news reports. Julian Davenport, owner of Davenport Industries, and one of the richest men in the country. "I'm so sorry," Selena whispered, her voice barely audible. She grabbed napkins from the table, instinctively moving to help clean the stain, but stopped herself. "You didn't touch men like Julian Davenport, without permission." Mr. Vickers appeared at her side, his face pale. "Mr. Davenport, please accept our deepest apologies. This is completely unacceptable. Selena will be dealt with immediately." Julian Davenport hadn't said a word. He was still looking at Selena, his expression unreadable. "It was an accident," she said, finding her voice. "Your colleague bumped my arm." Mr. Vickers shot her a warning look, but Selena stood her ground. She might need this job desperately, but she wouldn't be blamed for something that wasn't her fault. The dining room waited for the explosion. Julian Davenport was known for his perfectionism, for firing executives who showed up to meetings with wrinkled suits. The wine stain on his pristine white shirt and designer pants would surely trigger his legendary temper. Instead, something unexpected happened. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, almost like a smile. "Accidents happen," Julian said, his voice deep and surprisingly gentle. "No harm done." Mr. Vickers blinked in shock. "Sir, we'll cover the cleaning bill for your suit, of course, and your meal is on the house." Julian waved a dismissive hand, still looking at Selena. "That won't be necessary." He reached for his wallet and pulled out several $100 bills, placing them on the table. "This should cover dinner. Gentlemen, we'll continue this discussion another time." Without another word, he turned and walked out of the restaurant, the dark stain a stark contrast against his light clothing. "In my office." "Now," Mr. Vickers hissed at Selina once Julian was gone. 20 minutes later, Selina left La Maison Rouge with her final paycheck and no job. She walked to the bus stop in the cool evening air, tears of frustration burning her eyes. How was she going to tell her mother? How would they make rent this month? Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "How was work? Mom had a good day today. Her nurse said she ate dinner." Selina leaned against the bus stop sign, too tired to even cry properly. "Work was great," she typed back. "See you soon." She'd have to figure something out. She always did. The next morning, Selina sat at their small kitchen table, circling job listings in the newspaper. Her mother, Elena, sat across from her, wrapped in a robe, her once vibrant face now thin and pale from the cancer treatments. "You should have told me last night," Elena said softly, reaching across to squeeze her daughter's hand. Selina shrugged. "You were already asleep when I got home. Besides, it's not a big deal. I'll find something else. You've been at that place." "For 6 years, Miha. It is a big deal." Lily came into the kitchen, her backpack slung over one shoulder. At 18, she looked like a younger version of Selina, same dark eyes, same stubborn chin. "I can drop out this semester, get a full-time job to help out." "Absolutely not," Selina said firmly. "You're staying in school, that's non-negotiable." The doorbell rang, surprising all three women. They rarely had visitors, especially this early. Selina opened the door to find a courier holding a large white box with a silver ribbon. "Selina Moore," the courier asked. "That's me. Delivery for you." He handed her the box and a small envelope before heading back to his van. Confused, Selina brought the box to the kitchen table. "I didn't order anything." "Open it," Lily urged, curiosity brightening her face. Selina untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a beautiful, deep blue dress. The fabric felt expensive under her fingers, the kind of thing she'd never be able to afford in a million years. Who would send this? Elena wondered, touching the dress with reverent fingers. Selina opened the envelope. The card inside read, "Dinner. Tonight at 8. My driver will pick you up at 7:30. Julian Davenport." Below the message was a phone number. "Julian Davenport?" Lily gasped. "The Julian Davenport, the billionaire guy?" Selina stared at the card in disbelief. "This has to be a joke." "What happened between you two?" Elena asked, suddenly alert. Selina explained about the wine spill, leaving out the part about losing her job. "I don't understand why he'd send this. I ruined his expensive suit." "Maybe he liked what he saw." Lily wiggled her eyebrows suggestively. "Don't be ridiculous." Selina rolled her eyes, but her cheeks felt warm. "I'm not going." "Why not?" Eleanor asked. "It's just dinner." "Mum, men like Julian Davenport don't ask women like me to dinner unless they want something, and I'm not interested. She ain't being anybody's charity case or one-night stand." Selina put the dress back in the box and tried to forget about it. But as she spent the day applying for jobs online and making calls, her mind kept returning to those grey eyes and that almost smile. By 6 p.m., curiosity got the better of her. She took out her phone and dialed the number on the card. To her surprise, Julian answered on the second ring. "Davenport. Mr. Davenport, this is Selina Moore. I received your gift." "Ah, Selina. I was beginning to think you wouldn't call." His voice was smooth, confident. "I'm calling to decline your invitation." There was a pause. "May I ask why?" Selina paced her small bedroom. "Because I don't understand what this is. I spilled wine on you, and now you're sending me expensive dresses." "The dress is to replace your job at La Maison Rouge." Selina froze. "How did you know I lost my job?" "I called this morning to speak with you. Your manager informed me you no longer worked there. I might have expressed my disappointment that he would fire someone for an accident that wasn't their fault. So this is what? Guilt?" "No," Julian replied calmly. "This is me wanting to have dinner with an intriguing woman who wasn't afraid to stand up for herself even when facing someone like me." Selina sat on her bed, conflicted. "I don't date customers. I'm not a customer anymore, am I? Just dinner, Selina. If you're not enjoying yourself, you can leave at any time. She looked at the dress laid out on her bed. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever owned. Fine, she said finally. Just dinner. The restaurant was on the top floor of the Davenport building, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city lights. Selina felt out of place despite the beautiful dress, aware of the curious glances from other diners who clearly recognized Julian. Julian himself seemed completely at ease, ordering for both of them in fluent French and watching her with those intense grey eyes. "You're uncomfortable," he observed after their appetizers arrived. Selina straightened her shoulders. "I'm having dinner 50 floors above the city with a man who owns half of it. Yes, I'm a little uncomfortable." Julian smiled, a real one this time that softened his face and made him look younger. "Would it help if I told you I'm uncomfortable too?" She raised an eyebrow. "You? Why would you be uncomfortable?" "Because I don't usually do this. Ask women to dinner, I mean. I find that hard to believe." Julian twirled his wine glass. Red wine. She noticed with irony. "I'm not what the tabloids make me out to be. My work keeps me busy and I prefer it that way." "So why am I here?" Selina asked directly. He considered her question for a moment. "Because you're real. When you looked at me last night, you saw a person, not a bank account." Selina felt a flutter in her chest but pushed it away. "You don't know anything about me." "I'd like to," he said simply. To her surprise, Selina found herself talking about her mother's cancer diagnosis 3 years ago, about working to put Lily through college, about her dream of opening a small cafe someday. Julian listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he was really paying attention. In turn, he told her about building his company from the ground up, about losing his parents young, about the pressure of maintaining the empire he'd created. By the time dessert arrived, Selina had almost forgotten to be nervous. There was something about Julian that made her feel seen, not as a waitress or a daughter or a caretaker, but as herself. "May I see you again?" Julian asked as his driver took them back to her apartment. Selina hesitated. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because we live in different worlds, Julian. This was nice, but let's not pretend it could be anything more." The car stopped in front of her building. Before she could open the door, Julian gently took her hand. "Different worlds can intersect, Selina. Just think about it." She slipped out of the car without answering, clutching her small purse. As she watched the expensive car drive away, she told herself this was for the best. Men like Julian Davenport didn't end up with women like her. But as she closed her apartment door behind her, she couldn't ignore the warmth that spread through her chest when she thought of his smile. 2 days later, Selina was coming home from another unsuccessful job interview when she saw the sleek black car parked outside her building. Julian was leaning against it, wearing a casual button-down shirt and jeans that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to ignore how her heart sped up at the sight of him. "I have a proposition for you," Julian said, straightening up. "A job offer." Selina crossed her arms. "I don't need your charity." "It's not charity. I need an event coordinator for my company's charitable foundation. The previous one left suddenly to have a baby, and I need someone who's organized, good with people, and not intimidated by wealth. The salary is competitive." Selina narrowed her eyes. "You barely know me. Why would you offer me a job?" Julian stepped closer. "Call it intuition. I'm good at reading people, Selina. It's how I've built my business, and if I say no, then I'll leave and stop bothering you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "Think about it. The position starts next week." Their fingers brushed as she took the card, sending a tingle up her arm that she tried desperately to ignore. "I'll think about it," she said finally. Julian smiled that smile that transformed his face. "That's all I ask." He got back into his car but rolled down the window before driving away. "You know, Selina, some accidents turn out to be the best things that ever happened to us." As she watched him drive away, Selina couldn't decide if taking this job would be the biggest mistake of her life or the beginning of something wonderful. Either way, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. Selina stared at herself in the mirror of the employee bathroom, hardly recognizing the woman who stared back. Gone was the tired waitress in a black uniform. Instead, she wore a tailored navy blue blazer over a cream blouse, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. After a week at Davenport Industries, she still felt like an imposter. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. In 15 minutes, she would be sitting in on her first major foundation meeting, taking notes while Julian and his board discussed their annual charity gala. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Mum's doctor called. Good news, her numbers are improving." Selina smiled, her anxiety momentarily forgotten. This job had come just in time. The salary was more than double what she'd made at the restaurant, with health insurance that covered her mother's treatments. Whatever Julian's real reason for hiring her, she couldn't deny that it had been a lifeline. A knock on the bathroom door startled her. "Selina, the meeting's about to start." It was Meredith, Julian's efficient executive assistant, who had been helping Selina learn the ropes. In the conference room, Julian sat at the head of a long table surrounded by men and women in expensive suits. His face lit up when he saw Selina, a reaction that didn't go unnoticed by the others. "Everyone, this is Selina Moore, our new foundation coordinator," Julian announced. Selina took a seat near the end of the table, notebook in hand. She felt eyes on her, especially from Victoria Winters, the sleek blonde marketing director who sat at Julian's right hand. "So, Julian," Victoria said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "where did you find Ms. Moore?" She seemed new. The implication was clear. Selina didn't belong here. Before Julian could answer, Selina spoke up. "I worked at La Maison Rouge for 6 years, handling their events and private dining alongside my serving duties. It wasn't entirely true, but she'd helped enough with the restaurant's events to know the basics." Victoria's smile tightened. "How quaint." Julian leaned forward. "Selina brings a fresh perspective, which is exactly what our foundation needs. Now let's discuss the gala." As the meeting progressed, Selina took detailed notes, occasionally offering suggestions when asked. Julian seemed to value her input, which only made Victoria's expression grow colder. After the meeting, Victoria cornered Selina in the hallway. "Let me give you some advice. Whatever you think is happening between you and Julian, it won't last. He gets these projects every now and then, women he wants to help, but he always gets bored and moves on." Selina stood her ground. "I'm here to do a job, Ms. Winters, nothing more." Victoria laughed, a sharp cutting sound. "Of course you are, honey, just don't get too comfortable." As Victoria walked away, Selina felt a surge of doubt. Was she just Julian's latest project? The thought stung more than it should have. Over the next few weeks, Selina threw herself into her work, determined to prove she deserved this position. She stayed late, researching potential donors and reviewing past galas to find ways to improve. One evening, as the office emptied, Julian appeared in her doorway. "You're working too hard," he said softly. Selina looked up, surprised. She hadn't seen much of him lately, as he'd been traveling for business. "I want to make sure the gala is perfect." He came into her office, closing the door behind him. "You have nothing to prove, Selina. You're doing an excellent job. Tell that to Victoria and the others who think I'm only here because—" She stopped herself. "Because of what?" Julian moved closer, his grey eyes intent on her face. Selina sighed. "Because you feel sorry for me, or because—" "You're interested in me." Julian's expression softened. "I am interested in you, but that's not why I hired you." "Then why did you?" He leaned against her desk. "Because you're smart, resilient, and you don't back down, even when faced with a difficult billionaire." He smiled slightly. "Also, you have excellent attention to detail. I noticed how you handled the customers at La Maison Rouge, how you anticipated their needs. That's a rare quality." Heat crept up Selina's neck. "I thought you only saw me spill wine on you." "I noticed you the moment I walked in that night," Julian admitted. "The spilled wine just gave me an excuse to meet you." Their eyes met, and Selina felt that now familiar flutter in her chest. Julian was so close she could smell his cologne, a subtle woodsy scent that made her think of mountains and open skies. The phone on her desk rang, breaking the moment. Selina grabbed it, grateful for the interruption. Selina Moore speaking. Was her sister. her voice tight with panic. "Selina, Mom collapsed. We're at the hospital. You need to come now." The hospital waiting room was cold and sterile. Selina sat with her arm around Lily, who had finally fallen asleep against her shoulder. They'd been there for hours waiting for news about their mother. "Ms. Moore?" A doctor in a white coat approached them. Selina gently moved Lily and stood up. "Yes? How is she?" "Your mother is stable now. The cancer has spread more than we thought. We'd like to try a new treatment protocol, but..." The doctor hesitated. "It's experimental and your insurance won't cover it." "How much?" Selina asked, her voice hollow. "Around $80,000. The number hit her like a physical blow. Even with her new salary, it might as well have been 80 million. "I'll figure something out," she said, more to herself than to the doctor. After checking on her mother, who was sleeping peacefully thanks to the medications, Selina stepped outside the hospital to get some air. It was after midnight. The streets, quiet. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Julian. "Is everything okay? Call me if you need anything." She had sent him a brief message before leaving the office, explaining the emergency. Part of her wanted to call him, to hear his reassuring voice. But what could he? She wouldn't ask him for money. Her pride wouldn't allow it. Instead, she texted back, "Mom's stable. I'll be in tomorrow afternoon." His reply came immediately. "Take all the time you need. Your family comes first." Selina put her phone away and went back inside to her mother and sister. Whatever was happening between her and Julian would have to wait. Right now, her family needed her more. 3 days later, Selina sat at her mother's bedside, reading to her from an old romance novel they both loved. Eleanor looked smaller somehow, frailer, despite the doctor's assurances that she was responding well to the current treatments. Lily burst into the room, her eyes wide. "Selina, you need to see this." She thrust her phone into Selina's hands. On the screen was a news article with the headline, "Davenport Foundation announces new cancer research initiative with $5 million donation. Read the rest." Lily urged. The article went on to say that the Davenport Foundation was partnering with the hospital for a new experimental treatment program. All current cancer patients at the hospital would be eligible to apply for inclusion in the program, which would be fully funded by the foundation. "Mom would qualify," Lily said excitedly. "This has to be Julian, right? He did this for you, for us." Selina felt a mix of emotions, gratitude, hope, but also a burning sense of humiliation. Had Julian seen through her that easily? Had he done this out of pity? "This is wonderful news," Eleanor said softly from her bed, reaching for Selina's hand. "You must thank your young man for me." "He's not my young man, Mom, and I'm not sure this was his doing." But even as she said it, Selina knew it couldn't be a coincidence. Julian had done this for her, without being asked. He'd found a way to help not just her mother, but many others as well. It was the kindest, most thoughtful gesture anyone had ever made for her, and somehow that made it harder to accept. The next day, Selina returned to work, her emotions still in turmoil. She found Julian in his office, reviewing documents with Victoria. "Could I speak with you privately?" Selina asked from the doorway. Julian looked up, his face brightening. "Of course." He nodded to Victoria, who gathered her papers and left with a cold glance at Selina. Once they were alone, Selina closed the door. "Did you start that cancer program because of my mother?" Julian set down his pen. "I'd been considering a medical initiative for the foundation. Your mother's situation just helped me decide which area to focus on." "Julian, I can't accept this. It feels like..." "Like what?" he challenged gently. "Like someone cares about you and your family." "Is that so hard to accept, Selina?" "When it's $80,000, yes." She paced in front of his desk. "People will talk. They already think I'm sleeping with you to get this job. Now this..." Julian stood and came around the desk. "I don't care what people think. Your mother needs help, and I can provide it. Not just for her, but for others too. Where's the wrong in that?" Selina looked into his eyes, searching. "Why? Why would you do this for me? We barely know each other." Julian took her hands in his. His touch was warm, steady. "Because in the short time I've known you, I've seen your strength, your loyalty, your determination to take care of everyone around you. But who takes care of you, Selina? Tears filled her eyes. No one had asked her that before. She'd been the caretaker for so long, first for Lily after their father left, then for their mother when she got sick. I don't need taking care of, she said, but her voice wavered. Everyone does sometimes, Julian said softly. He reached up to brush a tear from her cheek. Let me help. Not because I pity you, but because he paused, seeming almost vulnerable for the first time since she'd met him. Because I care about you, more than I should, given how little time we've known each other. Selina felt something shift between them, the air charged with unspoken feelings. Julian was so close now, his hand still on her cheek. It would be so easy to lean in, to let herself fall into this impossible connection. Instead, she took a step back. Thank you for helping my mother. I need to get back to work on the gala now. Julian's hand fell to his side, disappointment flashing in his eyes before his usual composed expression returned. Of course, we'll talk more later. Selina fled to her office, her heart pounding. She was falling for Julian Davenport, falling hard and fast, and that terrified her more than anything. The night of the charity gala arrived, and the Davenport Foundation ballroom was transformed into a winter wonderland, with crystal decorations and white flowers everywhere. Selina had worked tirelessly to make it perfect, and now she stood at the entrance checking names off the guest list as New York's elite arrived in designer gowns and tuxedos. She wore a simple black dress, elegant but understated. She wasn't here as a guest but as staff, and she wanted to blend into the background. Victoria sauntered over, resplendent in a red gown that hugged her curves. My, don't you look appropriate? Like a proper little employee. Selina forced a smile. Thank you, Victoria. You look lovely as well. Victoria leaned closer. Did you know Julian and I dated for a while? Before his little fascination with you began? I didn't, but it's not relevant to me, Selina replied coolly. Victoria laughed. Oh, but it is. You see, Julian always comes back to me. When he gets bored with his charity cases, and he will get bored with you, I'm still here. I understand his world in a way you never will. Before Selina could respond, Julian appeared, handsome in a black tuxedo. Victoria, I believe the mayor was looking for you. Victoria smiled sweetly at Julian, placing a possessive hand on his arm. I was just chatting with your new hire. She's done a decent job with the gala, considering her background. Julian gently removed Victoria's hand. Selina has done an exceptional job now, if you'll excuse us. As Victoria stalked away, Julian turned to Selina. Don't let her get to you. She's always been territorial. So you did date her, Selina said, unable to keep the question from her voice. Briefly, years ago. It was a mistake. Julian's eyes softened as he looked at her. You look beautiful tonight. Selina felt her cheeks warm. I'm working, Julian. You've done enough. The gala is a success. Dance with me. People will talk. Julian smiled. Let them. One dance, Selina, that's all I'm asking. She hesitated, then nodded. Julian led her to the dance floor, just as the orchestra began a slow waltz. His hand at her waist was firm but gentle, guiding her through the steps. See? Not so terrible, he murmured. Selina relaxed into his arms, allowing herself to enjoy the moment. My mother starts the new treatment tomorrow. I can't thank you enough for that. You don't need to thank me. Seeing you smile is enough. They moved together as if they'd been dancing for years, and Selina felt a dangerous happiness blooming in her chest. For just this moment, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, their worlds could truly intersect. Across the room, Victoria watched them with narrowed eyes, her red lips pressed into a thin line. She pulled out her phone and made a call. It's me. I need you to look into someone named Selina Moore. Find everything you can. Yes, everything. As the dance ended, Julian kept hold of Selina's hand. Come with me. There's something I want to show you. He led her away from the ballroom, up a private elevator to the rooftop garden of the Davenport building. The night air was cool, and the garden was lit with thousands of tiny lights that mirrored the stars above and the city lights below. "This is my favorite place in the whole building," Julian said, watching her face as she took in the breathtaking view. "I come here to think, to find peace when the pressure gets too much." "It's beautiful," Selina whispered. Julian turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Selina, these past weeks have been different for me. Better. Whenever you're in the room, I can't focus on anything else. I find myself making excuses to visit your office, to be near you." Selina's heart raced. "Julian, let me finish. I know you have your doubts. About me, about us, about whether this could work. But I've never felt this way about anyone before. And I hope, you might feel something too." The sincerity in his eyes made her breath catch. This was Julian Davenport, a man who could have anyone looking at her like she was the only woman in the world. "I do feel something," she admitted softly, "but I'm scared. This is all happening so fast, and our lives are so different." Julian stepped closer. "Different doesn't mean incompatible. Give us a chance, Selina, that's all I'm asking." As the city lights twinkled around them, Julian lowered his head and kissed her. His lips were soft, his touch gentle as his hand came up to cradle her face. Selina felt herself melt into him, all her doubts momentarily forgotten. When they finally pulled apart, Julian's eyes were dark with emotion. "Tell me you'll try. Tell me you'll give us a chance." Selina looked up at this man, who had turned her, world upside down in just a few short weeks. "Yes," she whispered, "I'll try." As Julian smiled and pulled her close again, Selina pushed away the nagging voice in her head that warned her she was setting herself up for heartbreak. For tonight, at least, she would allow herself to believe in the possibility of their unlikely love story. But down in the ballroom, Victoria was already setting a plan in motion that would test their newfound relationship in ways neither Selina nor Julian could imagine. 2 months after the gala, Selina sat in the hospital waiting room, a magazine open but unread in her lap. The door to the consultation room opened, and her mother emerged with her doctor, both of them smiling. "The treatment is working," Elena announced, her eyes bright with happy tears. "The tumors are shrinking." Selina jumped up, embracing her mother tightly. "That's amazing news," Dr. Bennett nodded, pleased. "Your mother is responding exceptionally well to the Davenport Foundation protocol. Her body is fighting back, and we're seeing remarkable improvement." Selina felt a rush of gratitude toward Julian. Whatever complications existed in their relationship, she could never forget what he had done for her family. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," Selina told her mother as they left the hospital. "He's special to me." Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "The mysterious Julian Davenport. It's about time. I want to thank the man who saved my life." That evening, Julian arrived at their small apartment carrying flowers for Elena and a stuffed animal for Lily, who had become an enthusiastic supporter of their relationship. "So you're the billionaire who stole my daughter's heart," Elena said without preamble, looking Julian up and down. Julian smiled, not at all intimidated. "I think it was the other way around, Mrs. Moore. Your daughter captivated me the moment she spilled wine on my favorite suit." Eleanor laughed. "Call me Elena, and sit down. If you're going to date my daughter, I need to know more about you than what's in those gossip magazines." While Selina prepared dinner in the tiny kitchen, she could hear Julian and her mother talking, their voices blending easily. It seemed impossible that just a few months ago, Julian Davenport hadn't been part of their lives. Later, as Julian helped with the dishes, insisting despite Selina's protests, he bumped her hip gently with his. "So your family is wonderful," he said quietly. "Just like you." Selina felt a warmth spread through her chest. These past 2 months with Julian had been like a dream. Behind his serious business exterior was a kind, thoughtful man who made her laugh, who listened when she talked, who looked at her like she was precious. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked, drying a plate with careful attention. "How different you are from what I expected," Selina admitted. "When we met, I thought you'd be cold, arrogant." Julian chuckled. "I can be both those things. Just ask my board of directors, but not with me." He set down the dish towel and turned to face her. "Never with you." He kissed her softly, his hands cradling her face as if she were made of glass. A dramatic throat clearing interrupted them. Lily stood in the doorway, grinning. Sorry to break up the romance, but Mom wants to know if we're having dessert. Julian kept his arm around Selina's waist as they rejoined Elena in the living room. The evening continued with laughter and stories, and Selina found herself thinking that maybe, just maybe, this unlikely relationship could work after all. Tatiwam. The Davenport Industries headquarters the next morning. Selina was reviewing donation reports when her office phone rang. Selina Moore speaking. "Ms. Moore, there's a package for you at reception," the security guard informed her. The package was a large manila envelope with no return address. Inside was a stack of photographs, pictures of Julian with various women at restaurants, nightclubs, and charity events. Most were clearly from years ago, but some appeared more recent. A note was attached. "Once a player, always a player. Don't be naive." Selina's stomach twisted. She knew Julian had dated other women before her. He was 38, successful and attractive. Of course he had a past. But seeing the visual evidence made it real in a way that unsettled her. "What's that?" Selina looked up to find Victoria standing in her doorway, a smug smile on her perfectly made-up face. "Nothing important," Selina said, sliding the photos back into the envelope. Victoria sauntered into the office uninvited. "Funny. It looks like someone sent you Julian's greatest hits." She perched on the edge of Selina's desk. "Did you really think you were special? That you were different from all those other women?" "I think you should leave, Victoria." Victoria shrugged. "Just trying to save you some heartbreak. Julian has a pattern. He finds a woman, usually someone who needs saving, lavishes her with attention, gets bored and moves on. I've watched the cycle for years. And yet he never came back to you," Selina said, her temper flaring. "If you'll excuse me, I have work to do." Victoria's smile hardened. "Enjoy it while it lasts, sweetheart. Julian will tire of playing Prince Charming to your Cinderella soon enough." After Victoria left, Selina stared at the envelope, telling herself to throw it away. Instead, she tucked it into her desk drawer. The seed of doubt had been planted. That evening, Julian took Selina to dinner at a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street. Unlike the upscale places he usually frequented, this was a family-owned establishment with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. "How did you find this place?" Selina asked as they were seated at a corner table. Julian looked almost shy. "I asked your sister where you like to eat. I thought you might be more comfortable here than at those fancy restaurants I usually take you to." The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched her. This was the Julian she was falling for. The man who paid attention to what made her happy. As they shared a plate of pasta, Julian reached across the table to take her hand. "Selina, these past months have been the happiest of my life." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. The photos from earlier kept intruding on her thoughts. Julian noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" Selina hesitated, then decided honesty was the only way forward. "Someone sent me pictures today, of you, with other women." Julian's expression darkened. "Victoria." "She didn't sign the note, but she came to my office afterward. She said you have a pattern. That you find women who need help, shower them with attention, and then leave when you get bored." Julian was quiet for a long moment. "I've dated other women, yes. Some relationships were serious, others weren't. But I've never played games with people's feelings, Selina. That's not who I am." "She said you'd say that." Julian sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Victoria and I dated briefly years ago. When I ended things, she didn't take it well. She's convinced herself we're meant to be together, that every other relationship I have is just a distraction." He squeezed her hand. "What we have is real, Selina. I've never felt this way about anyone before. Victoria's trying to drive a wedge between us because she's jealous." Selina wanted to believe him. Everything about Julian's behavior supported what he was saying, but a nagging voice in her head, one that sounded suspiciously like Victoria's, kept whispering that she was just the latest in a long line of women who had fallen for Julian Davenport's charm. "I need time to think," she said finally. Julian nodded, his grey eyes troubled. "I understand, but please don't let Victoria's jealousy destroy what we're building together." After dinner, Julian drove her home in silence. When they reached her apartment building, he turned to her. "Selina, Not tonight," she interrupted gently. "Let's talk tomorrow when I've had time to clear my head." He nodded, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. "I care about you, Selina, more than I can say." She touched his cheek lightly, then got out of the car, feeling his eyes follow her until she disappeared into her building. The next morning, Selina arrived at work early, hoping to avoid both Julian and Victoria. She had barely slept, her mind replaying Victoria's words and Julian's defense. To her surprise, Julian was waiting in her office, a serious expression on his face. "I couldn't wait until later," he said, standing as she entered. "Selina, I need to show you something." He placed a folder on her desk. Inside were copies of bank statements, foundation records, and medical bills. "What is this?" she asked, confused. "Proof that I started the cancer research initiative before I even met you," Julian explained. "These are dated months before that night at La Maison Rouge. The program was already in development. When you told me about your mother, I just expedited the launch and made sure the hospital where she was being treated was included." Selina looked through the documents, feeling a weight lift from her chest. "Why are you showing me this?" Julian moved closer. "Because I need you to understand that, while meeting you might have accelerated the timeline, this wasn't something I created just to impress you or make you feel indebted to me. I don't have some savior complex, Selina. I care about you for who you are, not because you need my help. Julian, A knock at the door interrupted them. Meredith, Julian's assistant, stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Davenport, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's an urgent matter that requires your attention. The Reynolds merger." Julian nodded. "I'll be right there." He turned back to Selina. "We're not finished with this conversation. Dinner tonight? At your place?" "Yes," Selina agreed. "We'll talk tonight." After Julian left, Selina continued reviewing the documents he'd provided. Everything matched what he'd told her. The cancer program had indeed been in development long before they met. She felt ashamed for doubting him. Julian had given her no reason to question his motives or his feelings. It was her own insecurities, amplified by Victoria's manipulation, that had made her suspicious. Just as she was putting the folder away, her cell phone rang. It was Lily. "Selina, you need to come home now," her sister said, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Mom collapsed in the shower. The ambulance just took her to the hospital." The scene at the hospital was distressingly familiar. The sterile waiting room, the worried doctors, the endless waiting for news. This time, however, the news was not good. "The cancer has become aggressive again," Dr. Bennett explained gently. "It appears the treatment stopped working. This sometimes happens with experimental protocols." "What do we do now?" Selina asked, her voice hollow. "There's another treatment we can try, but it's even more experimental than the current one, and it's not covered by the foundation program because it's still in the very early testing phases." "We'll find a way," Selina said, though she had no idea how. Her savings were nearly depleted from the years of her mother's illness. After Dr. Bennett left, Selina called Julian and left a voicemail explaining the situation. He was in meetings all afternoon about the Reynolds merger, and she knew he couldn't be disturbed. To her surprise, he arrived at the hospital less than an hour later, slightly out of breath, as if he'd run all the way from his office. "How is she?" he asked, taking Selina's hands in his. Selina explained what the doctor had told her, trying to keep her voice steady. "They want to try a new treatment, but it's not covered by the foundation program." Julian nodded. "Whatever it costs, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about the money, Selina." Something inside her broke. "I can't keep accepting your money, Julian. My mother's treatments, my job, my whole life now seems to revolve around your generosity." "What happens when what?" he pushed gently. "When you get tired of me," she whispered, giving voice to her deepest fear. "When I'm no longer interesting, or when someone newer, younger, more exciting comes along. What happens to my mother? Then? To me?" Julian's face fell. "Is that what you think of me? That I'd abandon your mother if things didn't work out between us? That I'd fire you out of spite? No, I don't, but you're letting Victoria's poison cloud your judgment," he said, his voice tight with hurt. Selina couldn't deny it. "It's not just that. Look at us, Julian. You're one of the richest men in the country. I'm a waitress, former waitress, with a high school education. Our worlds are completely different. I don't care about any of that. Julian's voice rose, startling a nearby nurse. He lowered his tone. I care about you, Selina, just you, not your background or your bank account or your education level. But everyone else cares, Selina argued. Your friends, your business associates, the press, they all see me as some gold digger who got lucky. Julian ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Since when do you care what other people think? The woman who spilled wine on me and then stood her ground, she didn't care about my money. Or my status. That's the woman I fell in love with, Selina froze. What did you say? Julian's eyes widened as he realized what he'd said. Then his expression softened, and he took her hands again. I love you, Selina Moore. I wasn't planning to tell you like this, in a hospital hallway while we're arguing, but it's the truth. I love you. Selina felt tears welling in her eyes. Those 3 words, words she'd both longed for and feared, hung in the air between them. You don't have to say it back, Julian continued quickly. You don't have to say anything right now. But I needed you to know that this isn't a game for me, or a passing fancy. Before Selina could respond, Dr. Bennett approached them. Ms. Moore, your mother is asking for you. Go, Julian said softly. I'll be here when you're done. Eleanor was awake but weak, her skin pale against the hospital sheets. She smiled when Selina entered the room. There's my girl, she said, her voice thin. Where's your handsome man? In the waiting room, Selina replied, taking her mother's hand. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, Eleanor said with a weak chuckle. But I'll be okay. I'm not done fighting yet. She squeezed Selina's hand. You look troubled, Mija. Is it about Julian? Selina nodded, unable to keep anything from her perceptive mother. He says he loves me. And this makes you sad because I'm scared, Mom. What if it doesn't last? What if it's all too good to be true? Elena's eyes were knowing. Ah, you're doing what you always do, preparing for the worst instead of embracing the good right in front of you. I have to be practical. No. What you have to be is brave. Elena's gaze was direct despite her weakness. Love is always a risk. Selina, always. But it's a risk worth taking. That man out there, he looks at you the way your father used to look at me before life hardened him, like you're the answer to a question he didn't even know he was asking. Selina felt tears threatening. Again, I do love him, Mom. I'm just scared. Eleanor smiled. Then tell him that, all of it. The love and the fear. If he's the man I think he is, he'll understand both. When Selina returned to the waiting room, Julian was on his phone, speaking quietly but intently to someone. He ended the call when he saw her. That was Dr. Sharma, the head of oncology research at my company's medical division, he explained. He's recommended a specialist for your mother's case, someone who's had success with this new treatment protocol. She's flying in tomorrow morning. Selina stared at him, overwhelmed by his efficiency, his generosity, and mostly by the love she saw in his eyes. Julian, The hospital doors burst open, and Victoria strode in, perfectly dressed despite the late hour. Julian, there you are. The board is in an uproar. Reynolds is threatening to pull out of the merger if you don't personally attend the dinner tonight. She barely glanced at Selina. I've been calling you for hours. This deal is worth millions, Julian. You can't miss it because of... Her eyes flickered dismissively to Selina. Julian's expression hardened. Victoria, Selina's mother is seriously ill. The Reynolds deal can wait. Victoria laughed in disbelief. Wait, are you insane? This is the biggest merger of the year. The press is already at the restaurant. Then you handle it, Julian said firmly. That's why you're the marketing director. Market the company to Reynolds without me. Victoria's perfectly controlled facade cracked. This is ridiculous. You're risking everything for what? Some charity case and her sick mother? This isn't you, Julian. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment. Julian stepped closer to Victoria, his voice low but intense. You're right about one thing. This isn't the old me. The Julian you knew would have put business before everything else. But Selina has helped me see that there are more important things in life than mergers and stock prices. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Like what? Love? She spat the word like it was poison. Yes, exactly like love, Julian replied calmly. I love... Selina, Victoria, it's time you accepted that and moved on. Victoria's face flushed with anger and humiliation. She turned to Selina, her composure completely gone. You think you've won? This isn't over. Not by a long shot. With that, she stormed out of the hospital, leaving a stunned silence behind her. Julian turned to Selina, looking suddenly drained. I'm sorry about that. Victoria can be intense. You just told her you love me, Selina said quietly. I meant it. Julian took her hands. I know you're scared, Selina. I know you have doubts about us, about whether this can work long term, and I understand that you need time to trust that my feelings are real. He brought her hands to his lips, kissing them softly. But I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait as long as it takes for you to believe that this, us, is the real thing. Selina looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. In that moment, all her doubts seemed smaller than the certainty she felt in her heart. I love you, too, she whispered. I think I have for a while now. I was just too afraid to admit it. Julian's smile lit up his entire face. He pulled her close, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. We'll figure everything out, he promised against her hair. Your mother's treatment, Victoria, the company gossip, all of it together. For the first time since she'd met Julian Davenport, Selina let herself fully believe that their love story wasn't too good to be true, that sometimes wine stains could lead to something beautiful and lasting. But as they stood embracing in the hospital waiting room, neither of them saw Victoria watching from the hallway. Her face twisted with jealousy and determination. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. It's me, she said when the call connected. I need that information. We discussed about Selina Moore's past. Yes, everything you can find. Julian thinks he's in love with her, and I need to show him exactly who he's gotten involved with before it's too late. Victoria ended the call with a cold smile. Julian and Selina's love story might be beautiful, but she was determined to make sure it wouldn't have a happy ending. 3 weeks after Eleanor began her new treatment with the specialist Julian had brought in, Selina woke up in Julian's penthouse apartment, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She still wasn't used to the luxury, the silk sheets, the panoramic city views, the space that was larger than her family's entire apartment. Julian was already awake, propped up beside her, reading emails on his tablet. When he noticed she was awake, he set it aside and kissed her forehead. Good morning, beautiful, he murmured against her skin. Selina smiled, nestling closer to him. Good morning. How long have you been up? About an hour. I didn't want to wake you. You've been so tired with everything going on. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind. With her mother in the hospital, Selina had been splitting her time between work, hospital visits, and Julian. He had insisted she stay at his place to be closer to the hospital, and gradually, more and more of her things had migrated there. Any news from the hospital? She asked, sitting up. Julian nodded. Dr. Patel called. Your mother had a good night. The latest test results show the treatment is working. Relief washed over Selina. Thank God. There's something else we need to talk about, Julian said, his tone growing serious. The board called an emergency meeting for this afternoon. About the Reynolds merger? Julian shook his head. About Victoria. After her scene at the hospital, she went to the Reynolds dinner and apparently said some unfortunate things. The merger is now in jeopardy, and several board members are calling for her dismissal. Selina frowned. That's terrible, but why are you telling me this? Because I'm afraid she'll blame you, and I'm worried about what she might do next. Victoria doesn't handle rejection well, and she's never faced professional consequences for her personal vendettas before. Selina hadn't seen Victoria since that night at the hospital. She'd been taking some personal days, according to office gossip. What can she really do? Selina asked. Everyone knows you and I are together now. It's not a secret. Julian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Selina had come to recognize as a sign of his concern. Victoria is resourceful and vindictive. Just be careful, okay? Don't meet with her alone and let me know if she contacts you. Selina nodded, touched by his protectiveness, even as she wondered if he was overreacting. I'll be careful. Now, Julian said, his expression lightening. What do you say to breakfast at that little cafe you love before we head to the hospital? She smiled, pushing away thoughts of Victoria. That sounds perfect. Later that day, Selina was in her office at Davenport Industries, putting the final touches on a foundation report. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Mom's asking for... Hugh, can you come by the hospital? Selina gathered her things quickly. As she was leaving, she nearly collided with Victoria, who was waiting outside her office door. We need to talk, Victoria said, her tone icy but controlled. Selina stepped back, remembering Julian's warning. I'm sorry, but I need to get to the hospital. My mother... This won't take long, Victoria interrupted, following Selina to the elevator. I understand the board is meeting about me today. Selina pressed the lobby button. I don't know anything about that. Victoria laughed, a hollow sound. Please, don't insult my intelligence. Julian tells you everything. Not about board matters, Selina replied firmly. I need to go, Victoria. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Selina stepped out. Victoria followed, lowering her voice as they passed the security desk. You've ruined my career and stolen the man I love, all in the space of a few months. Quite an accomplishment. For a waitress. Selina stopped walking and turned to face her. I didn't steal Julian from you. You weren't even together. And whatever is happening with your job has nothing to do with me. Victoria's perfect smile never reached her eyes. Julian, and I have a history that goes back years. This dalliance with you is just a phase. He'll come to his senses eventually. Then you have nothing to worry about, do you? Selina said calmly. Now, if you'll excuse me, my mother is waiting. Victoria caught her arm as she turned to leave. This isn't over, Selina, not by a long shot. I've done some digging into your past. Did you know your father is in prison? That your sister was caught shoplifting last year? Do you think Julian's high society friends would welcome the daughter of a convicted felon into their circle? Do you think his business associates would trust him if they knew he was sleeping with a woman whose family has a criminal record? Selina felt the blood drain from her face. Her father had been arrested for fraud 5 years ago, something she rarely talked about, and Lily's shoplifting incident had been a teenage mistake. The charges had been dropped when the store manager realized she was stealing food because they couldn't afford groceries that week. Are you threatening me? Selina asked, her voice low. Victoria's smile widened. Not at all. I'm simply pointing out that everyone has skeletons in their closet. Some are just more damaging than others when exposed to the light. With that, she walked away, leaving Selina shaken. She had never hidden her past from Julian exactly, but they had never discussed her father in detail. Would it matter to him, to his business? Pushing these worries aside, Selina hurried to the hospital. Her mother needed her, and that was all that mattered right now. At the hospital, Selina found her mother sitting up in bed, looking stronger than she had in weeks. Lily was there too, showing Elena pictures on her phone. There's my other daughter, Eleanor said with a smile. Come see what your sister's been showing me. Selina kissed her mother's cheek and looked at Lily's phone. On the screen was a real estate listing for a small storefront with an apartment above it. What's this? She asked. Lily grinned. It's a space for your cafe. Remember how you always talked about opening your own place someday? This one's perfect. It's in a good neighborhood, the price is reasonable, and it already has some of the equipment you'd need. Selina stared at the listing, surprised that Lily remembered her old dream. Between their mother's illness and the financial struggles of the past few years, Selina had all but abandoned the idea of owning her own cafe. It's a nice thought, but we can't afford this, she said gently. You could with a small business. Loan, Lily argued. And Mum's getting better. I'm almost done with school. Maybe it's time to think about your dreams again. Eleanor took Selina's hand. Lily's right. You've put your life on hold for us long enough. This new treatment is working, and I'm feeling stronger every day. It's time for you to chase your own happiness. Selina felt tears pricking her eyes. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. You still have a long recovery ahead and you found a good man who loves you, Elena interrupted. A man who wants to build a future with you. Don't push that away because you're afraid to let yourself be happy. Selina thought about Julian, about how he'd changed her life in so many unexpected ways, not just with his money or influence, but with his love, steady, unwavering, certain. But then Victoria's threats echoed in her mind. Would Julian still want that future if Victoria made good on her promise to expose Selina's family's past? Would his board of directors still respect him if they knew he was involved with someone whose father was in prison? Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Meeting over. Victoria has been placed on leave pending investigation. Free for dinner tonight? Have something important to ask you. Selina texted back a quick yes, then turned her attention back to her mother and sister, pushing her worries aside for now. That evening, as Selina waited for Julian at his penthouse, her mind kept returning to Victoria's threats. Should she tell Julian? Warn him about what Victoria might do? She didn't want secrets between them, but she also didn't want to give Victoria's accusations more power by repeating them. The elevator doors opened, and Julian stepped into the apartment, looking tired but relieved. How did the meeting go? Selina asked as he kissed her hello. Victoria's been suspended for 2 weeks while the board investigates her behavior. It wasn't just the Reynolds dinner. Apparently she's been creating a hostile work environment for quite some time. Several employees came forward once they realized the board was finally taking it seriously. Selina hesitated, then decided to be honest. I saw her today before I went to the hospital. She made some threats. Julian's expression darkened. What kind of threats? She said she's been investigating my family. She knows about my father being in prison and about Lily's shoplifting incident last year. She implied she might make it public, try to embarrass you or damage your reputation. To her surprise, Julian laughed. Is that all? Selina, I already know about your father. I had you vetted before I offered you the job at the foundation. Standard procedure for all employees with access to financial information. Selina stared at him. You knew all this time? Julian nodded. Your father made a mistake, served his time, and from what I understand, has been trying to rebuild his life since his release. As for Lily, she was a teenager in a desperate situation. Neither of those things reflects on you or changes how I feel about you. Relief washed over Selina. But what about your board, your business associates? Victoria seemed to think they'd look down on you for being with someone like me. Julian took her hands. Anyone who would judge me for loving you isn't someone whose opinion I value. Besides, do you really think the board members all have spotless family histories? Everyone has complications in their past, Selina. What matters is who we are now and who we choose to be going forward. He led her to the couch and sat down beside her. Which brings me to what I wanted to ask you tonight. Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Selina's breath caught in her throat. I had planned a more elaborate proposal. Dinner. At that little restaurant where we had our first date. Maybe a walk in the park afterward. But after everything that's happened today, I don't want to wait. He opened the box to reveal a beautiful diamond ring, elegant but not ostentatious. Selina Moore, you spilled wine on me and changed my life forever. You've shown me what really matters, what it means to truly love someone. Will you marry me? Tears filled Selina's eyes as emotions overwhelmed her. Joy, love, and lingering fear. Julian, are you sure, really sure our lives are so different and people will talk? Let them talk, Julian said firmly. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you, Selina. All of you. Your strength, your loyalty to your family, your sometimes stubborn pride. I want to build a life with you, to support your dreams the way you've supported mine. So what do you say? Will you marry me? In that moment, Selina realized that her mother and sister had been right. She had spent too long being afraid to reach for happiness, too long preparing for the worst, instead of embracing the good right in front of her. Yes, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I'll marry you. Julian slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands slightly shaking with emotion. Then he pulled her close and kissed her deeply, passionately, making promises with his lips that his words had already spoken. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Julian rested his forehead against hers. I was thinking we could get married in the spring after your mother's stronger. Something small, just family and close friends. Selina nodded. imagining her mother well enough to dance at her wedding. That sounds perfect. And I saw a property listing on your phone earlier, a storefront with an apartment above it. Is that something you're interested in? Selina pulled back, surprised. You saw that? It was just Lily being Lily. She found this place she thinks would be perfect for the cafe I used to dream about opening. Julian smiled. It's a good dream. Why not pursue it? You could start small, build it into whatever you want it to be. I know a few people in real estate who could help you find the perfect location. You'd support that. Me opening a cafe instead of working at the foundation. Of course, Julian said without hesitation. I want you to be happy, Selina. If owning your own business is your dream, then I want to help make it come true. Not by doing it for you, he added quickly, knowing her pride, but by supporting you while you do it yourself. Selina felt her heart swell with love for this man who understood her so completely. I love you, Julian Davenport, and I love you, soon-to-be Selina Davenport. The sound of her future name made Selina smile. It still seemed surreal that the man who had come into her life through a spilled glass of wine would now be her husband. The news of their engagement spread quickly. Lily screamed with excitement when Selina told her, and Eleanor cried happy tears, making Selina promise to postpone the wedding until she was well enough to walk her down the aisle. At Davenport Industries, reactions were mixed. Some employees genuinely congratulated them, while others whispered behind their hands, no doubt wondering what Julian saw in a former waitress with no college degree. Victoria, still on suspension, learned of the engagement from social media. She stormed into Julian's office unannounced one afternoon, her face flushed with anger. "You're making a huge mistake," she said without preamble. "That girl is using you, Julian. She's after your money, your status. Can't you see that?" Julian looked up from his computer calmly. "Victoria, I think you should leave before you say something that costs you more than just a 2-week suspension." "I'm trying to protect you," she insisted. "I've known you for years. We make sense together. We come from the same world, understand the same pressures. What could she possibly offer you that I can't?" "Love," Julian said simply. "Honesty. A perspective that isn't clouded by privilege or ambition. Victoria, I'm sorry if I ever gave you the impression that we might have a future together, but that's never been a possibility. I think you need to accept that and move on." Victoria's composed facade cracked completely. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "When the novelty wears off and you realize she doesn't fit in your world, you'll remember that I was right." With that, she stormed out, nearly colliding with Selina, who was just arriving. "Congratulations," Victoria spat as she pushed past her. "Enjoy it while it lasts." Selina watched her go, then entered Julian's office. "That looked intense," Julian sighed. "Victoria's having a hard time accepting reality, but she's not our problem anymore." He stood and came around his desk to kiss Selina hello. "How's your mother today?" "Better," Selina said with a smile. "Dr. Patel says she might be able to go home next week if her numbers keep improving." "That's wonderful news," Julian wrapped his arms around her waist. "And have you had a chance to look at that property Lily found? I took the liberty of scheduling a viewing for tomorrow, if you're interested." Selina laughed. "You're really serious about this cafe idea, aren't you?" "I'm serious about you having the chance to follow your dreams," Julian corrected. "Whether that's a cafe or something else entirely." As they stood there in each other's arms, Selina marveled at how drastically her life had changed in just a few months. From struggling waitress to fiancée of one of the richest men in the city, from putting her dreams on hold to being encouraged to pursue them. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "How strange life is," she replied. "How one moment, one accident can change everything." Julian smiled. "Best wine I ever had spilled on me." 6 months later, on a perfect spring day, Selina stood in a small dressing room at the back of an elegant garden venue. Her mother, now in remission and glowing with health, adjusted the simple veil on Selina's head. "You look beautiful, Mika," Elena said, tears in her eyes. Selina smoothed the front of her wedding dress, an elegant, understated gown that Julian had insisted on buying from a famous designer, despite her protests that it was too expensive. "Are you nervous?" Lily asked, elegant in her maid-of-honor dress. A little, Selina admitted. Not about marrying Julian, but about everything else. Being Mrs. Davenport, living in that world. Elena squeezed her hand. You'll still be you, Selina. Having his name doesn't change who you are inside. A knock at the door interrupted them. 5 minutes, ladies, the wedding planner called. As promised, the wedding was small, just 50 guests, including family and close friends. Julian had kept his word about not making it a society event, despite pressure from business associates, who felt snubbed by their exclusion. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. When Selina walked down the aisle on her mother's arm, she saw only Julian waiting for her, his grey eyes filled with love and wonder. They exchanged traditional vows, both with voices that trembled slightly with emotion. When Julian slipped the wedding band onto her finger to join her engagement ring, he squeezed her hand as if to say, "We made it. Despite everything, we made it here." The reception was held in the same garden, with fairy lights strung through. The trees and simple wildflower centerpieces on the tables. Julian had handled much of the planning himself, insisting that Selina focus on getting her cafe ready for its grand opening the following month. As they swayed together during their first dance, Julian held her close. "Happy, Mrs. Davenport?" Selina smiled up at him. "Happier than I ever thought possible. Even though you're stuck with a difficult billionaire who sometimes works too much," she laughed. "Even then. And you?" "Happy to be married to a stubborn former waitress who insisted on signing a prenup to prove she wasn't after your money." Julian kissed her softly. "I wouldn't have it any other way." From across the reception, Victoria watched them with a glass of champagne in her hand. Against everyone's advice, Julian had invited her to the wedding, saying it would be a gesture of peace. She had accepted, surprising them both. Now, seeing the genuine joy on Julian's face as he danced with his new wife, Victoria finally had to admit defeat. What they had was real, not a phase or a novelty, but genuine love. As the evening progressed, Selina slipped away from the festivities for a moment of quiet. Julian found her standing alone, looking up at the stars. "Everything okay?" he asked, sliding his arm around her waist. "Perfect," she assured him. "I just needed a minute to take it all in." Julian nodded in understanding. "It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From that night at La Maison Rouge to here. A journey I never expected to take," Selina agreed, "but one I'm so grateful for." She turned to face him. "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just another rich customer who looked down on people like me." Julian chuckled. "And I thought you were just a beautiful waitress who might make an interesting date. I had no idea you'd change my entire life." "We changed each other's lives," Selina corrected him. "You helped me remember my dreams, and I helped you see beyond your work." Julian pulled her closer. "A fair exchange." "More than fair," Selina whispered against his lips. As they shared a tender kiss under the stars, with the sounds of celebration in the background, both were thinking the same thing. Sometimes the most unexpected beginnings led to the most beautiful endings. And sometimes, just sometimes, a wine stain could be the start of a love story that defied all odds. 1 year later, Selina stood behind the counter of her cafe, Selina's Place, arranging freshly baked pastries in the display case. The morning rush was over, and a few regulars lingered at tables, enjoying their coffee and the cozy atmosphere. The bell over the door jingled, and Julian walked in, looking slightly rumpled after an early meeting. "Coffee, sir?" Selina asked with a grin. Julian leaned across the counter to kiss her. "Please, the strongest you have. The board meeting was brutal." Selina prepared his usual, an Americano with an extra shot, and handed it to him. "Rough morning?" "Nothing. A visit to my favorite cafe couldn't fix," he replied with a smile. It had become their routine. Julian would stop by the cafe at least once a day, sometimes for just a few minutes, sometimes staying longer to work on his laptop in the corner table she'd started calling the CEO's office. Their first year of marriage had not been without challenges. There had been society events where Selina felt out of place, board members who questioned Julian's judgment, and the occasional tabloid story speculating about their relationship. But through it all, they had faced every obstacle together. Julian had supported Selina's cafe venture with enthusiasm, but not interference, proud of how she'd built it into a successful local business on her own merits. And Selina had embraced parts of Julian's world while helping him see which parts could be left behind without regret. "I almost forgot," Julian said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Your mother called. She and Lily want to know if we're still on for dinner tonight to celebrate their move into the new apartment." Selina nodded. Eleanor and Lily had recently moved into a comfortable apartment in a safe neighborhood, paid for with Eleanor's new salary as the patient outreach coordinator for the Davenport Foundation's cancer program. Julian had offered them more, but Elena had insisted on making her own way, a stubborn pride that Selina had clearly inherited. "I'm making dessert," Selina said. "That chocolate cake you all love." Julian's eyes lit up. "The one with the raspberry." "Filling? I'll cancel my late meeting." As they chatted, Victoria entered the cafe. She paused when she saw them, then squared her shoulders and approached the counter. After being reinstated at Davenport Industries following her suspension, Victoria had focused on her work rather than her grudge. There was still tension when she and Selina crossed paths, but the open hostility had faded. "Good morning," she said stiffly. "Could I get a latte to go, please?" "Of course," Selina replied, moving to prepare the drink. Julian nodded to Victoria. "The Douglas presentation went well yesterday. The client was impressed." Victoria allowed herself a small smile. "Thank you, we worked hard on it." As Selina handed Victoria her latte, their eyes met briefly. There would never be friendship between them, but there was a grudging respect now. Two strong women who had both fought for what they wanted, even if only one could win. After Victoria left, Julian shook his head. "She's dating that new VP from the tech division, did you hear? Apparently they're quite serious." "Good for her," Selina said sincerely. "Everyone deserves to find happiness." Julian squeezed her hand. "You know what still amazes me? How you can be so generous, even to people who tried to hurt you." Selina shrugged. "Life's too short to hold grudges. Besides," she added with a grin, "I got the better end of the deal, didn't I?" "We both did," Julian replied, his eyes full of love. As the day continued around them, customers coming and going, the rhythm of the cafe Selina had dreamed of for so long, they shared a moment of quiet appreciation for their unlikely love story, a love that had begun with an accident, with wine spilled on an expensive suit, a love that had overcome differences in background and status, weathered threats and doubts, and emerged stronger for all of it. A love that had, in the end, marked them both more deeply than any wine stain ever could. The end.